back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We have the usual crew here with me once again. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
Hello.
Adam Vitale,
Hey guys.
James Galizio,
Hey folks.
and Chao Min Wu.
How's it going?
We are recording this podcast in the middle of April. It is April 13th as I speak into the microphone right now. And looking at the rundown of this podcast, because we record it on a weekly basis, just kind of lines up in a bit of a strange spot because we have a lot of games. We've talked about many times about how April is backloaded with tons of releases, a lot of which we can't talk about yet. And then we have a lot of us already going through our backlogs. I know Chao has been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I just finished Dragon's Dogma. And a lot of those games have already been covered on the podcast. So we're kind of at a spot here where we're like, all right, let's... and on top of that, there's not a ton of news. This has been a very much a release-focused month and not so much of a news-focused month, though we do have quite a bit of a date rundown here at the end of the podcast about all the updates to existing games, DLCs coming out in April. So we're just kind of wing it and see what we have to talk about here. I don't think anyone would have expected this a few weeks ago or a month ago, but it seems like the main topic of this podcast might actually be Fallout. Of course, the release of the Amazon Fallout TV series is kind of the headliner there, and a few other Fallout-related updates from Bethesda, a few other interesting kind of mod-scoped topics that I'm interested in talking about. So we'll start with that. We also have some direct access where actually we might just open up with this. James, a little bit of a surprise, a little bit of a different sort of access that we got access to here. I kept saying access like 5 times there. But you were able to go to the premiere to the Fallout TV show, which I have no idea what that's like. So just kind of tee up like what that experience was like compared to a PAX or visiting a dev studio or things like that.
Oh, well, it was definitely fascinating. It was my first time doing a premiere like that too. Basically just Amazon and I guess Bethesda reached out and said, "Hey, we're having the premiere for the Fallout TV series." And they use the same, I guess, some inside baseball, the same like PR company handles pretty much most things in the industry these days. And so since we work with them a lot, and I've worked with them a lot, especially in the last like year and a half or so, they're like, "Hey, we know you're local to LA. We know that Fallout's an RPG type thing. We're inviting you to the red carpet event preview, premiere." And so that was in Hollywood. It was literally a Hollywood red carpet event. It was at the TTL Chinese Theater. Saw the first 2 episodes of the series about a couple of days before they went live on Prime. And it was neat. Afterwards, there was an after party. There was so many people that I didn't recognize because like most of the people that were invited were part of the Hollywood side of things, or like TV or film press, or like obviously actors, or Todd Howard. I saw Todd Howard at the after
I was going to
party.
ask if you saw Todd.
But
That's cool.
Yeah. And before James gets any farther, we will say that the rest of us have been interested in the show but have not finished. Even James has not finished, so it is impossible for us to spoil it. But we do have a review up on the site from Alex. We're also going to continue to talk about James' experiences with the red carpet event. So we will not be spoiling the Fallout TV show here. It would be impossible because none of us have finished it. But I think we've all kind of talked about right before we press record on this podcast. I think it's kind of all on our radar because reception, including James's impression of the first couple episodes, Alex's review up on the site, and just kind of general seems to have been like pretty damn good. And the posture that we'll take at RPG Site, which we've done this before, is Fallout the TV show and RPG? Well, no, but we've kind of taken the wiggle room, the license, where if it's an RPG based IP, we'll talk about it. Like we've had Scott cover the Divinity Original Sin board game. We've talked about like Dragon Age books. So Fallout TV show seems like it's kind of like right in the same realm.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit different in the sense that like if I'm assuming the Divinity Original Sin board game was a tabletop RPG, and I'm sure like
That's true, yeah.
so it's like that's an RPG. A lot of games that even some of us have been playing recently take from tabletop RPGs. I would argue that Saga, Scarlet Grace, and Emerald Beyond have a lot of tabletop RPG energy. So,
Mm.
But we've covered like novels and anime, to small extent.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we really need to like push like a big justification for it. It's like it's related to the RPG series. That's just kind of like the
Yep.
start and end of it. So so tell us like exactly like okay, so like where were you seated around this area, and like who was like what was like your view when they like started premiering? Because I can't even imagine like how these events go.
So it was the TCL Chinese Theater. I think.
I've been there. I've been there once.
Yeah. I think like the PC gaming show was at it once. I think like during E3 season, like maybe 2018, 2019. I don't know. But yeah. So big theater. There was like hundreds of people in there, totally packed house. We got popcorn, we got a drink, we got some.
Were you like
candy.
up at the front, or like was there a second like floor there or anything?
I was on the. I would say I was like in the middle, like not too close, not too far away. I was in a good spot for it. I was in a really good spot for it. So it was really interesting watching a TV show like this on essentially the best like setup you could.
Yeah, they have that's really like normally to like get in there it's like pretty expensive if you're just like paying at a normal rate too. So they have really high tech shit there. So tell us a little bit like kind of tee up the premise for this Fallout TV show and sort of like what were your impressions of the first 2 episodes? What you saw there?
Yep. So there's already been some bit of contention because for important context, this TV show is completely canon.
Oh, okay.
It is a canon part of the Fallout universe. Bethesda worked directly with the writers and producers on the series to make sure that it is like canon to Fallout. So they've even said that they consider it, if it was like a game, they would consider it essentially like a Fallout 5. Which is weird, but it's also like really. I will say the one thing I did notice from the first 2 episodes is that it feels like the opening to a Fallout game, especially like a Bethesda Fallout game, and has. There's going to be a lot of comparisons to like Fallout 3, where it's like you spend a bit of time in the vault, and then suddenly it's like you're out and about, and it's like you get that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen, I really enjoyed it. At least, again, I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I need to see the rest. I'm kind of waiting to see the rest of my dad because I know he likes that sort of stuff.
Nice. Yeah.
But so the TV series kind of focuses in on 3 main characters. There's the Ghoul, who the series doesn't even try to hide the fact that he was this cowboy dude from right before the bombs fell. Like, there's like a really interesting like kind of prologue for the first like 5-10 minutes of the first episode, maybe 15 minutes, where it's like showing exactly when the bombs dropped.
Oh, okay.
So it's like and it's neat because you see some of that in the games, but not in such a direct degree, I feel like.
Do you know like the setting, like exactly like what portion, like is this still like in the United States, and like what part
This
of
is the United States.
Okay.
And this will be important later, West Coast.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think like one of the shots you see when Lucy, the vault dweller, gets out of the vault is that she's standing at like on the coast, and she looks out, and it's like, oh, this is totally LA. That's Santa Monica Pier right there, man.
Do you see like any sort of like torn down Hollywood sign or anything?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm sure it's there. It's probably in a later episode, but
right.
Yeah.
That's interesting that they went West Coast because the Bethesda games, I hope I get this right. 3 is the capital. 4 is and then 4 is Boston. They're all East Coast, and then 2 is like in like New Reno, New California, and I've played Fallout 1 and 2, but it's been a while, so it's I'm kind of like scratching my going the cobwebs of my brain to remember all the locations. I do remember seeing some contention, people who are really, really, really concerned about canon, about whether or not the TV show makes New Vegas canon or non-canon, because that's always kind of been the odd one, because it's, it was
Okay.
published by Obsidian. And I saw some people say like, no, actually it still is canon. Some people say like, no, it isn't. And I'm like, I don't know. It's interesting.
The
but also I feel
word
like
of
people are
God,
really concerned.
word of
Okay.
God is that New Vegas is canon. And
Okay.
there is some contention because they're in a later episode. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the context. There is the reveal that Sandy Shades is in ruins, and there's the implication that Sandy Shades at least started falling apart in 2277, which New Vegas didn't start until 2281. The problem is that people think that the fact that Sandy Shades was in ruins means that New Vegas shouldn't have happened because of the NCR.
Shady Sands.
Shady Sands.
Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. I
No,
got
I was like, is
too
that right?
mixed up.
No, it's I could easily see that.
Yeah.
Shady Sands.
But yeah, so one important bit of context that is in the show is that's like, yeah, this is Shady Sands. It is the first capital of the NCR, which implies that they had other capitals, which means that even if it got destroyed in 2277, the NCR had other capitals that they founded, which would still line up with the idea of the NCR overexpanding in 2281 in New Vegas. So I think I'm just going to be blunt. People were always going to look for an excuse to try and justify the idea that like Bethesda hates New Vegas because it's the one that people like. And I think that I can understand people being like a little insecure about it, but it's like, come on, guys. Come on.
It all seems a bit silly.
Yeah.
And for those that haven't played any of the Fallout games and are very much on the fringe of like what it is, basically the games are effectively in order: Fallout 1, 2, 3, New Vegas 4. Like in the order they release is the order of the timeline. 76, the online quasi MMO one that released like in 2018, I played a fair bit of that, is the earliest, because that was like supposed to be the very first vault opening. I think it was like 25 years after the bombs. I don't quite remember the dates. And then the TV show is the furthest past the bombs dropping. So that's kind of the order. The TV show.
But yeah, but even then, for like even Alex stressed this in his review up on the site, is that even if you're not a fan of the Fallout series, I've never played a Fallout game, this still is a TV show that stands on its own.
I will be
so,
in that category. I have
yeah.
never beaten a Fallout game before. I only
Yeah.
watched friends play it, and I
So-
kind of know nothing about it.
It seems like that this TV show is did the right approach, where it's like fans who have invested in themselves in the Fallout series, will pick up little fun references and like will get they've captured the vibe of like playing the game in the series. It seems like, and that's great. But even still, it's just like an entertaining TV show from start to finish from someone who has never engaged with the Fallout franchise at all, and it's just like you're just getting like a fun, entertaining story. And that's perfectly fine, as long as you enjoyed yourself, that should be the thing that matters.
Yeah, I will say it was very funny, like when there was like little bits and pieces of this is pandering hard. Like the very first time you see a stim pack and it like kind of lingers on it for like a good like
Right.
10 seconds, and it's like, come on,
I
really?
like the Sony phone like cameo.
Oh yeah.
Or like the Pepsi can that's facing forward. Like it's the stem pack. Does it have a GEC? I forget if GECs are still around. I forget what that stands for. It's when it's the Fallout 2 used this box to create a civilization. It's got a tree seed in it. I don't remember.
Nah, yeah, it wasn't. It is funny though how like they it's a funny show, but not in the sense that it's like makes humor like everything about it. I feel like it kind of strikes a good balance. I was worried going in what the tone was going to be, because I could have seen it being too like serious or too funny, and I feel like it it's nailed the vibes of at least modern Fallout, where there is serious moments, but there is like humor inherent in it. Like one of the main characters in the show is a squire in the Brotherhood of Steel, and there's the whole thing where it's like, okay, so basically the squires carry these like caddy bags essentially, which it's very funny because it's like, you know how you just like gave your companions like literally everything that you weren't holding on to directly in like Fallout games or any like Bethesda game, and it's like literally the squires are the pack mule. Which is especially
that's a nice
funny
touch.
when you look at the design of the bag, and it's like, well, these were obviously designed so that the actual like knights carry them in like the power armor, and it's like, nope, have the squires do it.
That that seems like a lot of fun. Like I haven't started the show yet, but I need to find the time to do it. I've been busy with some other stuff, but it just seems like it's been really cool to see that people have like generally been enjoying it. From even like older Fallout fans who've like
Yeah,
primarily engaged like Fallout 1 and 2, and like they've been like big fans of like the direction of the series from 3 onward. Like they still had fun with the TV show. And it really lends to the strength of the creators and the staff, like
yeah,
understanding the source material and finding a way to balance like people who were fans before, people who are modern fans, and people who aren't fans of Fallout. And that's an incredibly hard thing to achieve, I imagine.
And also, it just seems like it's because obviously Fallout, outside of some minor updates to 76, has kind of been, I won't say on ice, but it's been quiet since release of Fallout 4, which was like 2015. It was a long time ago. Fallout
There's
4
a
release
yeah,
date.
I think Bethesda has basically said, so when they announced Starfield in like 2018, I think, and then they're
Right.
like, when they announced Starfield, they announced Elder Scrolls 6 at the same time, which is probably too early, but I think it was mostly a reassurance just to say, yes, we're still working on Elder Scrolls. And then they haven't like announced it formally, but they've said it in like response to questions like, are you going to do Fallout 5? And the answer is yes. But like, is that going to be after Elder Scrolls 6 or sort of concurrent? Either way, it's probably not anytime soon for Fallout
And
5.
it's been several years since the acquisition, but both Fallout developers effectively are under Microsoft now. So InXile and Obsidian and Bethesda. So it's like, hey guys, like,
make
It's
the ultimate
so funny to
collaboration
like track
project.
it's so funny to track the lineage of those like RPG developers, how Interplay in a way became BioWare, became Bethesda, became Obsidian, and now like Bethesda and Obsidian are back under Microsoft. Now Microsoft just needs to grab BioWare from EA or something, and then it'll be complete. But anyway, oh yeah, and in Exile, I forgot.
Yeah.
how many
but
how many of the people that even like Mass Effect 3 are still at BioWare is the question, because it feels like that studio's had massive brain drain that to the point where it wouldn't even be
Yeah,
worth like.
I don't know. It is.
That's tricky to track that stuff.
we're gonna say, Adam.
Uh, I'm excited for Clockwork Revolution.
Oh yeah,
That's probably a couple years out still, but that's what an Exile is currently working on.
right. Yeah,
So,
that's their next project.
mm-hmm. It's kind of a
And
side
then
note.
the
There's a
TV
part of me
show.
that's actually kind of like appreciate that like Brian Fargo, who is like the head honcho of Interplay like 35 years ago, like literally before I was born, is still making games, like
Yeah.
and heading a studio. That's
And
cool to
like
me.
a lot of the original Interplay creators, like Tim Kaine, are at Obsidian now. I think he's still there. So
I
they're
know Tim
basically
Kaine is doing isn't he? Wait, who am I thinking of? Outer Worlds. Who did Outer Worlds at
both
Obsidian?
Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky.
Oh, okay.
I think they're both still there, but I'm not sure.
Or at least doing like consulting.
Anyway, yeah. But then basically all the original talent is somewhere under Microsoft's umbrella. And then the TV show has kind of, it seems like, invigorated there's interest in the franchise, because apparently, like, I hope I get this stat right, but like Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 were both within like the Steam top 30 played
Oh
for the
really?
first
Wow.
time like since like several years ago. For Fallout 76, I think it was having like a free weekend or free preview or something. So you may not be able to count that, but like people are reinstalling and playing Fallout 4. And I have a little bit of a tangent for that. So even before the release of the show, I was interested in a total conversion mod coming out for Fallout 4, slated for April, called Fallout London. And the last time, and I think James might remember this, the last time I played a total conversion mod, it was Fallout the Frontier. And unfortunately, that one like crashed and burned for a myriad of issues that I won't go into here. There are essays on YouTube that cover what
Oh
happened with that
man,
one.
that was
Uh,
God. That was like what? That must have been like 2019 or something. That was a
Yeah.
long time
Um,
ago.
but yeah, but so I re-download Fallout 4 mainly because I'm interested. I'm interested in playing the series again. And trying out this mod, but the mod was originally slated to release on April 23rd for Fallout London. And I guess we haven't talked about this yet, but the previously announced but long undated next gen update to Fallout 4 is slated for April 25th, and that includes an update to the PC version. So of course, the mod people are like, the mod. I don't remember if the mod team behind Fallout London has a team name. I'll look them up during the podcast. They're like, well, we're going to talk about on Saturday, as we're recording this. I don't think it's come out yet what their plans are. My guess is that they're going to hold back and make sure that their compatibility is fine before releasing their mods, because I would imagine that it would stink to have a release for your mod and then have it break in 2 days when the game officially
Yeah,
updates.
just to be clear,
But
I don't know if I missed it, but the mod releases on the 23rd, and then the PC update releases
yeah.
on the 25th. So it's like that's like the opposite timing of what you want to have the mod be broken right away.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm in their Discord, and as far as I know, they have not announced what their plans are yet, specifically the Fallout London team. But of course, people are also have like all their other like suite of mods that have been out because the
Right.
game hasn't been updated since 2018. They're worried about, okay, well, I love Fallout 4. It's one of my favorite games. I put 100 hours into it or more. Are my mods going to break as soon as the official update goes through? And the answer is probably. But
I mean,
hopefully,
historically, it does,
yeah.
So it's one of those things that's like, I don't know if it's like the for those people, like maybe is there a way to like just prevent the update from happening, like through Steam or something?
No, it used to be a thing where you could prevent games from updating. I remember there was actually a big controversy when I think the original PC version of GTA San Andreas was replaced with the mobile version, which had different songs on the radio, or I guess less songs. And people were pissed because even if you had bought the game before the licenses had expired, they had forcibly updated it where you couldn't access that version of the game. You can download older versions of games, but it's a bit tricky because you have to do something specific to prevent it from auto updating.
Oh, yeah, because I thought in my head I was like, oh, Steam still offers the feature to opt out of updates for specific games, but
Nope, they
oh,
haven't offered that in like a decade.
see, that's oh man, I'm so old.
And by the way, the Fallout London team is literally called Fallout London team.
Okay, cool.
Checks out.
And anyways,
Yep.
so I install Fallout 4, and I still think of Fallout 4 as like a contemporary video game. Like it's not that was 8 years ago, 9 years ago. That wasn't that long ago. But it has like a very old school classic launcher. And I know a lot of games now it's still released with launchers. Like Baldur's Gate 3 effectively has a launcher. Then you like pick some items and selections for your graphics or your video output, whatever. But like in order to play in a like a borderless window above 1080p, you got to edit the INI file. If you want to disable vertical sync, you got to edit the INI file. I'm like, why do I have to do this? And then if you make any other change, it'll overwrite whatever you select. So you have to make it read only once you have it all the selections made. And then on top of that, apparently RTX cards have issues with like certain options with like God rays and weapon debris. So like I boot up the game, I load up my file from like 9 years ago where I'm like level 70 and I have no idea where I am. It's been forever. I think I'm in Nuka World because that was the last update to that game. And then it crashes to desktop without any error message within like 2 minutes. And I'm like, well, that's not good. So I'm immediately like Googling, how do I prevent this Bethesda PC game from crashing to desktop like within 2 minutes of booting? Oh, I've missed this. At least
That's-
Starfield seems to have avoided most of those issues.
Just,
Go ahead.
I want you to know when you said that, I just thought of that like one scene from Batman Beyond where it's like, do you understand how little that narrows things down?
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, just turn off God Rays if you have an RTX card. I'm like, okay, I guess I don't get God Rays. I saw there's potentially some other workarounds, but that one seemed to work. So I'm like, fine. But then, yeah, I'm not gonna play it too much until the update goes through. And yeah, I was looking at, like, I'm also just kind of interested in like replaying Fallout 4, but I also didn't really like Fallout 4 as much as the other games. I know it's contentious a little bit, but I really don't like the voice protagonist.
You're not alone in
I
that.
I saw a tweet like right around the time the Fallout show had like went live, or someone's like, so they said I've reinstalled Fallout 4, and then they just posted that like one SpongeBob image of Mr. Krabs playing golf, and it's like, wait a minute, I hate golf.
I did enjoy Fallout 4 a lot. I just, in spite of the voice protagonist, but just mechanically, I just enjoy that kind of game. But yeah, I'm eager to play some more, either the base game or the total conversion mod if it's coming out within the next month or so. Too bad it's releasing at a quiet time as well.
The real litmus test on this Fallout TV show, because it has a voice protagonist, is their base building in that TV show somewhere.
Preston Garvey telling us to help the settlements.
It's funny how like, and this is a complete aside and maybe a bit of a tangent. Originally, this was going to be released week by week, and people were actually worried before it dropped when they announced, oh, it's going to be all at once. Like, I think they said it pretty close to like the release of the show. There was like, actually, no, it's going to just be bingeable. I think that the overall reception of the show has been good enough that they probably should have done it week by week.
Yeah, I'm always a little like divisive on this when it comes to like the week by week versus drop it all in a one batch together thing, because I like talking about individual episodes with people on a weekly basis, and like us getting excited for the next one to drop. So I'm always on that side of like the week by week, because I like consuming, like, just thinking about like a singular episode of what they did in that.
Well, I mean, you see it with anime, obviously, and you see it with some of like the Disney Plus stuff that does do week by week, and it stays in like the public consciousness longer.
Like, look at X-Men 97. It's like, it's just,
I don't know anything about that show, but I heard like episode 5 was like amazing, I guess.
yeah.
So, like, it went to places that X-Men usually hasn't, but should have. I heard, but anyway.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but like glowing praise about like the new X-Men show.
Yeah, I was blown away when people, because when I saw that, like, when the first video, I was like, I don't know about this, but seeing that they actually pulled it off, it's like, man, I should really just show them. That and Shogun, I think, are the two big ones.
Oh, yeah.
I really want
I've heard a lot
Man,
good stuff about Shogun.
It sounds like ironically enough, that like it might be a slow time for, well, this month might be slower for games, but it's been like a really strong month for TV shows, apparently.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Well, for me, last year the week to week discussion around Gundam Witch from Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like the week to week. You might say like in the long run doesn't matter. I don't know, but like people were talking about that show for basically the whole year across its two courses or two core. So, and then if it all drops at once, I just don't feel like you get that. Like, did that One Piece Netflix drop all at once?
Yeah, I think it was all once.
Good, but it still just kind of feels like it came and went, and that might not matter to the studio bottom line. But it's less interesting, I guess. It's more interesting to be week by week, in my opinion. It's also more tackleable because you're like, okay, I can catch up on the one episode of Fallout that released versus, oh, I've got 8 waiting for me. I'll watch it later, sort of thing.
And then people stop talking about it. It's like, okay, I guess I don't know when I'll watch it because it's like, yeah,
yeah. But I understand people who like the getting it all at once, because it's like, hey, I'm just gonna like block out like my afternoon, just get some drinks, get some food, and then just marathon.
Here's the good news about them. They can just wait for the last episode to air.
No, they must be part of the conversation immediately.
What is this madness?
All right. So I think that kind of covers all of our just various Fallout topic discussions. So very cool that James got that opportunity to see the premiere of the TV show. I know a lot of us here are interested in watching it. We'll follow we're obviously going to talk about the Fallout 4. Well, I guess we covered it preemptively here with the Fallout 4 and console next gen update. And I'll definitely play that mod whenever it releases and report back to see how it is. So the other game that I was originally interested in playing this week, it released a few days ago, is that Australian Outback Fallout inspired game, Broken Roads. I will say I have not played it. I know that our reviewer Paige is working on the review right now, and by all accounts, did not like it at all. The critical and commercial reception to the game has been pretty poor. I am still interested in playing it, but in the meantime, before it came out, I decided to go back to an earlier release of the year that I was interested in, that I know Josh played and talked about briefly on the podcast back in February, last Epoch. So this is a Diablo-like that released from, I don't remember the name of the team behind it, but very much
Let me go check that out real fast.
and very much framed in the like vein of like more like a Diablo 2 rather than a Diablo 4. So
11th
I
Hour
played this
Games is the
11th
developer and
Hour.
publisher.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's been in like early access for a long time. So basically, this year it just marked its 1.0 release, and the game's going to continue to get updates. So, but yeah, so okay, last Epoch, I downloaded it on a whim. I decided to play a sorcerer, and if you remember the discussion that Josh provided a few months ago, you pick a class. You have one of 5 very basic archetypes. I forget exactly what they all are, but it's effectively warrior, necromancer, rogue, mage, druid, and then each one goes into 3 different specializations that you have to pick one. For instance, the mage, you can either become a sorcerer, a rune caster, or a spellblade, which is like a melee focused mage. So I picked spellblade, so that was kind of my class. You get the decision pretty early on, and as far as I can tell, and the game even kind of puts a big tooltip on it, it is a permanent selection. You will select one and you cannot respec into the other ones if you want to get the other ones. My understanding is that you do have to make a new character, which I actually kind of like. Oh, here, Josh just gave me a very handy graphic showing all the different elite specialization options.
Yep.
Yeah,
So which one did you do out of this? So I gave you this chart.
yeah, Spellblade. Yeah, that
Okay,
one I
cool.
remembered.
Yeah, so
So
you
what
went
I
with
focused
mage
on,
based class spellblade specialization. Okay, got it.
yep. So Spellblade is a melee focused, mage based class. And if you've ever played a Diablo like, I'm not going to explain the very basics to you, but the main system behind this game is the way that you craft and gear up equipment using the affix system, where you get shards or you get equipment that you can break down into shards, and these will have benefits kind of like increased cold damage, increased health regen, increased physical resist, lower cast time, things like that. And through a system of items and doodads, I'm not going to go like too much into the weeds. You can, with a few limitations, kind of re-roll your items and say, I really like this wand, but I wish it had this prefix instead of this one. Well, you might be able to swap it out or tier it up. What it does is it reminds me actually a lot of Neo 2, because Neo 2 had a very kind of similar system with uh, I don't know if they call them affixes in that game, but each weapon would have a certain amount of modifiers that you would be able to, at the blacksmith, swap them out and kind of min-max to an extent. So speaking at a high level, not going immediately into itemization, um, when I first started playing this game, I wasn't sure I was really feeling it. To me, it felt like too much of the progression was passive, because you have your character progression as you go through the classes, and you have different nodes on effectively your skill tree. Then you have your skill specialization, where you choose certain skills that you can then augment or alter in different ways. And initially, a lot of these are like increase cold damage by 2%, increase health regen +1. And it just felt very passive to me. I didn't really like it. Like, oh, you press buttons, numbers go up. So for like the first 5, 6, 7 hours, I was like, I'm not sure I'm feeling it. The combat's really fluid though, and it runs pretty well on PC. So, and the game is also very arcadey in terms of like the stages are all bite sized. You're selecting nodes on a map. No area is far too big. I remember when I played Fallout 4, or not Fallout 4, my brain is in Fallout mode, Diablo 4. Obviously, Diablo 4, one of its big selling points is that it was a big open world, um, a big, giant, cohesive, connected map. And I don't know that it really bought it anything. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. But when we go back to the last Epoch, and it's just like, oh, now I'm in the overgrown pass, and it's just this selection on the map, or I'm in the Airy, which is where like one of the enemy factions is located, and it's this section of the map, and you just pick a node on a map, and you can warp to most places. It just felt a lot more fluid and a little bit more enjoyable in terms of respect for my time. I know it's kind of a snarky way to put it, but
No, it
you can
makes
see
sense.
there,
It's more efficient. You kind of
yeah.
get to like the point faster.
And then Diablo 4, you're like, oh god, when do I unlock my horse? Because I move so slow and the map's so huge. And I don't know the
Uh-huh.
map being so huge really buys it a lot, but as I said, when early on, I didn't like how the progression was
Mm.
so passive. But then it still remains pretty passive. Like I'd say most of the progression is passive instead of like active. Instead of obtaining new abilities, you're augmenting what you already have. But the augments get a little more interesting, a little bit more intricate. Like for instance, I found a unique offhand item that basically tremendously upgraded my cold based abilities like blizzard spells, hellstorms, things like that. So I'm like, all right, I'll specialize and become like a sort of cold spell mage, a
Mhm.
spellblade.
Yeah.
And then I found like there's certain nodes in the map where it's like this one will give you fire aura if you do certain things. I'm like, well, I don't need fire aura. That's useless for me. I don't have items that synergize with that. But then later on the same tree, you have the option where it's like you put a point into this and it'll turn all fire auras into ice auras. I'm like, oh, okay, that immediately opens up this whole section of this tree as being in play now because
Yeah,
if I put
that's like
one
build the
point,
fighting right there. Like that one little thing because it's like,
and that's
oh,
just
you
like
can
one
synergize that.
example,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's synergies like that up and down. Like for instance, another just basic example, just to try to paint the picture. I had another one that was one of the last spells that you unlock as a spellblade is like a dash move. It's a mobility skill that is originally an electric skill. It kind of stuns enemies, but just like the fire aura, it also has a node that can change it into either fire or ice, I believe. But also, it gives you in this particular ability, it has a cooldown of about 5 seconds. Every melee attack that you hit an enemy with while that spell is on cooldown will charge it for its next use. So basically, you can it encourages being in the fray, not casting from range. Like basically, the very perfect spellblade skill.
Right.
So like I'm sitting there like chilling enemies, hitting enemies with melee attacks, using the spell when it comes off cooldown. It gives me ward, which is like a barrier that goes above your primary health. If you have, let's say, 1,000 health, a lot of the abilities for the Spellblade give you a ward, which is like a barrier above your health that when an enemy hits you, it depletes from that rather than hitting you at all. It's kind of like a shell. So basically, I had all these augments, and that's kind of how I played my build. But if I rolled a completely new character and still selected Spellblade out of the 15 options, is it 15 options or 18?
It's
15
yeah.
options. I could have built that character completely differently. Or I could have just picked a completely different class, which of course would have completely played differently. Uh, I could easily see how this game could become a complete time sink in a good way. It only takes about 15, 20 hours to complete the story. Then you unlock basically what's it called? It's called like the Monuments of Echoes at the end, where you see all the alterations to the timeline. Because it's called Last Epoch. It is a story about seeing different epochs of time and traveling between them, and then seeing alternate versions of events. And that's kind of how the end game works. I played long enough to see one of those alterations, basically the introductory one to conclusion, and basically, the longer I played this game, the more I was originally thinking like I'm gonna play this game, I'm gonna put it down, and then move on to the next thing. But the longer I play this game, I was like, maybe I'll keep this installed. Maybe I'll go back to it because
It gets
like
into yeah, it kind of digs into you like that over time.
yeah, and then as you complete more of these echoes in the post game in this monument system, you get basically there's a whole new system of blessings where you get additional upgrades. Where I completed the first monument alternate timeline, and I got a blessing that it's something like plus 20% chance for unique items to drop. And like, hey, that's something. But there's also like multiple blessings you can select, and there's something like 10 or 15 different alternate timelines that you can play through, and they all keep stacking up in terms of like this one recommends level 50 characters, level 60 characters, level 70 characters, and it just kind of keeps going. And I can easily see how people could become like, oh, this is going to be my mono game for the year. I'm going to learn the system in and out, and it's quite fun. The story does kind of take a back seat, but what is there I actually kind of like because it's a little bit more open ended. It's also a little bit more bittersweet.
Mhm.
Um, I've read online a little bit where they've said, "Oh, the story is not complete. We're going to add to it." Like even though they've had their 1.0 release, they're still going to plan to add more, which doesn't surprise me. But I don't think the ending like was a complete cliffhanger. Without spoiling the game, it's not much to spoil, but without spoiling it, the ending is not super happy. It's more open ended. There's a little bit of a sense of inevitability. And then that's kind of what the alternate timelines kind of go into, where
Yeah.
it's like in this version of events, uh, and the outcome of this battle was completely different, or this person died earlier than they should have, or this key item was stolen, or something like that. And there's a little bit of like an inevitability of failure, but you're going in there and you're going to try your damnedest anyway, and you're going to try all these alterations until you find the one that succeeds. And maybe if you keep going through, maybe the last like level 100 echoes end up being a little bit more happy. But it's I actually kind of like uh just the vibe of the story, it being kind of like
It's
a
pretty low key, you know. It's
yeah.
there, and you're striving towards something that's not like it's not overbearing. It's not like long cuts or anything like
And
that.
all I will also say that the this sounds like little this sounds like it's one of those things that's hard to champion in a podcast, but I
Mhm.
just like the UX of the game in terms of
Yeah,
like how chat works, how party works. It's very seamless. Basically, if you want to invite someone to your party, you right click their name in chat, say invite to party, and it gives you a button that says teleport to character. And they can just teleport to you, like from wherever they are, whatever timeline they're in. And then they can leave party just as easily. You can link items in chat. And anyone who's played a lot of games might say, like, that sounds pretty, you know, pretty fundamental, right? That's like every game has that, but it's just so seamless. Like there's some games where you're like, oh, I got to go into this sub menu or go here to find a party
right.
or whatever.
Like
Where this
it's
one is
things that are
just
like
like,
it sounds basic on like on the surface, but like the way that they implement it feels like this should be the way it should be like for all games almost.
yeah, I guess the word is intuitive. If you want
Uh-huh.
to invite someone to party, you don't have to go into like a party menu or go into like an option page or something. You just right click their name in chat, regardless of whatever they're doing or saying, whether they whispered you or talking global chat and invite the party. Oh, there they are. Um,
I was stressing
no-
this when I first talked about this game on the earlier podcast, but it truly feels like it's an action RPG made by people who've played a ton of action RPG games and understand what makes them fun.
mhm.
Yeah, I forgot if I even mentioned that on that podcast, but like town layouts, for example, like things like the NPCs you want to like interact with in town, like the fundamental ones that you repeatedly interact with, they're usually right by each other. It's not like they're at opposite ends of the town, you know. It's never like, oh shit, I have to go to that town to that person at the other side of town to like go do sell off something or like break down something. It's like no, they're usually right by each other and then right by a storage thing. And it's like,
Mhm.
great, fantastic. Why isn't this like every fucking game then? you know? But yeah, you make a good point on that. And I'm glad you called that out. I'm kind of curious. Did you check out the in-game loot filter at all for that game?
Oh, I did because I was playing a cold mage, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So I wanted items that had the affix increased cold damage. So that way I could break them down and slap them on my actual weapons. Because if I
Mhm.
found like a halberd with increased cold damage, like, well, that's the halberd's useless, but the affix is useful. So basically, what I did is I could say any item that has this affix on it, make it in all caps, and you can change the color, make it purple or whatever. And then when an item drops, I can see like, oh, like that, I definitely want to make sure I pick that up. And very early on, like if an item has no affixes at all, like it's a common item with no magic or anything, like that's basically useless. It doesn't scrap in anything, it doesn't sell for anything, and it's probably like a fourth of all drops. So you just put a filter on to hide it, and it just cleans up the game UI massively. So yeah, It's really intuitive and it's very, very useful. And more games should have it. I guess it kind of gets similar kind of props as the UX thing. Like it just makes sense. Like please hide these common rogue gloves that I cannot pick up and cannot use and sell for 8 gold. And 8 gold's like nothing. So like makes ton of sense, and I was constantly tweaking it. I guess one of the last anecdotes I'll give is if an item has a prefix or a suffix that you don't like, so let me just keep the example pretty basic. If I find something that has, oh, this wand is perfect, but it has plus fire damage rather than plus ice damage, what you can do is you can find another fire shard to improve the fire damage of that wand, but then throw on the random chance to replace it as you upgrade it. I know that's a lot of words kind of in a row, but you upgrade fire, but it'll augment into a different one as you upgrade it. So like, okay, I'm going to find an item with a fire shard, break it down, put the fire shard on this wand, and then roll for my chance to change it, and then hopefully it'll change into something more useful. Like, if I get lucky, cold damage, or even if I don't get as lucky, if it's just like plus mana, like, oh, I can use that, whatever. So basically, finding an affix to upgrade so that you can re-roll it for something else. It ends up becoming like you almost have like a little task list. Like, oh, I want to find one of these so I can replace my boots. I want to find one of these so I can replace the affix on my belt. And when it's hard to put into words, when people talk about whether or not a game has good or bad itemization, that's hard to define, and it really is kind of hard to boil down. But I would definitely say that, to my experience, Last Epoch has good itemization. Very easy to find useful items that you can make use of in some fashion and improve your build constantly. And if you like to tweak and tinker, it's the perfect game for that.
Yeah, it really understands like the fundamental like things to nail down in the action RPG genre of this kind. Because like that genre has evolved in so many ways over the past 20 years that like just seeing this come out and like having a lot of modern sensibilities and understanding kind of like the core foundation of like what makes this like a really compelling genre for a lot of people, and presenting them in a way that feels like, even though you might be like new to the genre, or like you might be starting out, or you're still kind of getting your feet wet on like trying to understand this game, feels like it's like almost a good introduction to that genre of like you can steadily learn it at your own pace, while at the same time, once you finally get your footing and get a solid understanding, that feels like that base knowledge can translate into other games of that genre if you want to give those a shot as well. It's like, okay, I understand now, like this is what makes quote unquote good itemization in this kind of game, and that'll translate over to like other games of the genre that you try out. It's like, okay, this is what does good and what does bad.
And so kind of on the same route, on the same vein, I was struggling with one of the late game bosses. You might say, Brian, just get good. But I think part of the reason was it was that Kraken boss. His like a lock on or something like that. And it basically focuses on lightning and cold damage. And I think it was resistant to cold damage, and I had specialized in cold. Like,
Yeah.
And then, so basically, I just said, "Hey, I'm struggling. Anyone want to party for this boss?" In the global chat, and immediately I had 4 or 5 people like, "Sure, dude." Like,
that's awesome.
Bro,
that's great.
You. And then also like in the chat, like the worst part about the chat was people that were saying like gold sellers, could go to this website and buy gold for, real money trading. So there was a little bit of that. So hopefully the team at the studio can figure out how to weed that out. But outside of that, there's people talking about doing runs, augmenting items, builds, asking for help like I was, giving suggestions. Very, very, from my experience, very kind, very eager. I think they were just being like evangelists. Like,
it's a pretty cool community that game has built up over the years.
So of course I have this guy come help me with this boss, and he's also some sort of mage. I didn't quite see like in the UI like how I like mouse over and see what class they were. But all of a sudden, they're just like shitting out flames and ice spikes, and like they're like level 100, and they're like melting the boss. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks for the carry. Now I feel kind of worthless, but he was like, no problem, bro, and then walked out like my savior. But yeah, so it's a sort of game where it's like it's got a high like ceiling, but also a low learning curve in terms of like it's easy to get into. and then the community, my experience is just really helpful. And the game, like I played it, like my total playtime is still something like 20 hours. Like you don't have to commit a ton of time to see the story, to do some end game, to have a really cool build. Like I definitely think it's a game people should try out if they find time this year to do it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like secretly like one of the stronger games this year for sure.
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't know if it'll appear in like top 5, but like clearly like a contender for my
maybe,
top 10
yeah,
for the year.
we'll see. I also really like that. I'm trying to. Well, I just like lost my thought in the middle of making that thought. What was it now? Shit. Oh, I remember. I really like how the game, like in other action RPGs, of course there'll be like build guides and like optimizing guides that like you won't feel successful if you don't like follow a specific build. In this game, I feel like it's pretty malleable enough that like you can kind of go into it without like seeking out a build guide and kind of making your own thing, and you'll still feel powerful and rewarded for like seeking out a way that like a play style that you want to do, and you'll still feel like you're powerful and have high numbers and do a lot of damage, and and you feel great, like feeling like hey, I feel like I discovered this on my own, and I feel like I'm feeling rewarded with this power fantasy of like going in this direction, you know.
I definitely agree. Like, yeah, there's certainly like if you go in with no foresight and you're picking random skills that don't synergize at all, you might have a bad time. But like, was my build optimal? I'm sure not. I bet if I go into the last Epoch forums or whatever and say is an ice-based spell blade a good class? Like they say, no, it's terrible. But I have no idea. But like I talked about those like spell synergies or passive synergies. If you find like, oh, these two things work together and that synergizes with this, and that really synergizes with this off the wall thing that I would have never expected, and then you start implementing those, yeah, for sure, you feel powerful and you see it playing out in real time. And yeah, I definitely never felt like, oh, I better look up a guide. Like, nope, I can manage on my own. So yeah, I agree.
I'm glad that you
Last thing I'll
really
say,
like the game. I knew that you would like it when I was playing. I was like, Ryan should definitely give this a shot. So it's really cool hearing you talk
yeah,
about
well,
it.
last thing I'll say is that the environments are fun and varied. The art style is really pleasing.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I was a little cold to it, like I said, like the first 4 or 5 hours. But once you started like unlock your obviously your specialization, and you go a little bit into that. Once you're like level 25 or 30, by the end of the game I was like level 64 or something like that. So uh, I wasn't super. I was cold to it, but then just put more time into it, and I liked it the more I played it. So,
Cool. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So next week I'll be playing Broken Roads. Hopefully not broke the game, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully
Also, we have that Final Fantasy DLC this week. I'm gonna play.
Mm.
The last game we have listed on our game rundown here at the start. Speaking of Final Fantasy, James, for science, for education, for all of us, has I think put some time into
Not very long yet. Not very long yet. Just like about 2 hours last night.
I wonder if they're like, what do you think we're talking about, podcast listeners? The Xbox release of Final Fantasy 14. So yeah, I won't. So tee us up a little bit, James. Obviously, this has been a little bit kind of in social chat about some awkwardness about how this release related to filters and how it interfaces with the Microsoft ecosystem. But just tell us about your time with as a veteran Final Fantasy 14 player playing it on Xbox.
Okay, so for some context, I had no intention of checking out this version of the game because I play it on PC, and it's like, especially for an MMO, I don't really care about playing it on a console. I don't care about playing it for gamepad. I've played it on my Steam Deck a decent amount, which obviously you're going to want to use gamepad controls for that. But until some things started coming out about the Xbox version of this game, I didn't really have any intention of checking it out whatsoever on the system. Never played it on PlayStation, whether that be 4 or 5. But enough beating around the bush. Microsoft sabotaged this version of the game for a number of reasons.
You're going to say it wasn't that bad, but no, you're going the other direction.
Okay, so
keep going.
first off, this is one thing that I can't talk on too much myself because I also own 14 on PC, so I'm not locked to this specific aspect of the Xbox version of the game. If you only own the game on Xbox and you want to pay for your sub, you cannot do it the normal way. You have to buy an Xbox exclusive currency called Final Fantasy 14 coins that you then use to buy your subscription. And the reason they have that is because Microsoft wants a cut of the subscription fee, which again, I mentioned this in a previous podcast. If you play this game on PlayStation, even if you own the game and you're not just playing the free trial, you don't have to pay for PlayStation Plus. But the Xbox version, you do need to pay for a Game Pass Core, which is basically Xbox Live Gold. But now, in addition to that, you also have to pay more for the sub because Microsoft also wanted a cut of the sub. So you have to buy these coins through the Xbox marketplace that you then use to pay for your sub. Microsoft, what the fuck are you doing?
So it's not quite apples to apples, but my most similar comparison is playing the Steam version of Phantasy Star Online. So because of the Steam client, and Steam also takes a cut of like premium transactions, and they have an optional premium sub. I think they call it premium set. But the thing is, it's just as far as I understand, maybe I'll have to check because Phantasy Star is either on Steam or on Microsoft. Maybe that's not quite the best comparison because it doesn't like you either have to buy it through one storefront or the other, and they're both taking a cut, just depending on which one you're in. But at least it's straightforward, and there's not this like intermediate currency that you have to buy to get your subscription. I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize it in my head about how it might make sense,
Yeah.
and I'm coming up short.
Yeah. The one positive of this is that since these are tied to like Microsoft Store currency, if you use Microsoft Rewards, which I know a lot of Xbox players do because it's basically free passive income. You can basically pay for your sub every couple of months just by that alone because you can get like Xbox Live credit and then just use that to buy the coins, and then it's like, okay, here you go. That's cool. I guess technically I could do that now, not that I need to. But that's not even the main issue with the Xbox version. The port itself, from a technical aspect, is fine. It seems to run about the same as the PS5 version, maybe a bit better, maybe a bit worse, but close enough that it generally doesn't matter. I booted it up on Series X. It runs fine. It looks fine. No issues there. The main issue, which you have definitely seen on social media in the last couple of weeks, is so the console versions of 14 have a profanity filter that is enabled by default. You can disable it on PlayStation, and it makes it so that it's pretty much exactly the same as the system text and chat on PC. Problem: the profanity filter on Xbox is even worse than the profanity filter on PlayStation, from what I can tell, and even disabling it in the settings does not disable it in game. And you could say, oh, maybe that's a bug, but they've had almost a month to fix it, and there hasn't even been a statement on it from either Microsoft or Square Enix. So I posted
to tee it up, like some people might think like if they haven't been following on social, like so it has a not disableable profanity filter. So what? But the thing is that it's capturing it's just capturing all sorts of like not like necessary communication to party up and to play the game is what it's preventing players from doing effectively, right?
Yeah. It affects system text too, which means that since one of the first major cities in the game, Thanalan, has anal in it, if literally anyone posts a map spot into the chat log, because that's the thing you do. You can mark something on your map, and then you can paste the marked location, and it'll give a link so that people can just click that and add a way marker on their map to that location. Literally any location in Thanalan, it'll just have a TH question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, AN because of anal.
Sounds like they went a little too overboard. Well, I guess console players might be okay. They will just communicate using emotes probably.
Yeah, but the problem is it's like there's so much. There's so much. I knew it was bad because of seeing people online, but just sitting in a regular city and watching the Say Chat or Novice Network go just kind of go. It's like, man, stuff gets dinged and you don't even know what the original word was because you don't know what it's filtering because it's so
That reminds me when Cullen was trying to play a Dragon Quest game, and they wouldn't let him use his name Cullen, and we're like, "What is that even trying to filter?" Like, we had no idea.
yeah.
I
And
have,
it's
I have a
like,
question about is this I don't know, since it's an MMO, I don't know if crossplay is the right word, but do PC, PlayStation, and Xbox players share a realm?
yes.
And if an Xbox player pings that location on a map, and a PlayStation player is reading it in chat, is it filtered for them or is it only filtered for Xbox players?
So that's one of the things I need to test, but I do know that the way the filter works is that if anything in your sentence or your text input would be filtered, it refuses to send it.
Jesus.
I do not think marking something on the map will be prevented from being sent because you're basically putting in a macro and then it's the system text that's being filtered, not the macro.
But if you were to just type out the location name in a statement, you wouldn't.
I wonder how many corporate hoops you have to go through to reach an agreement that to somehow disable or lessen the system a core system feature of that profanity filter on the Xbox. Because I'm thinking do you only have to go through the Xbox team or is it a wider net of is a Microsoft policy somewhere?
Yeah.
So
and
it's
knowing
kind of it feels like a more complicated issue than maybe it's letting on.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that it's not a complicated issue. I'm just saying it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good, and there's not been even acknowledgement.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's look. I think it would be bad enough if this was even in a single player RPG because it's embarrassing. It in the eyes of people that are normal that see this, they look at what Microsoft is doing and they're like, what's their fucking problem?
Yeah.
But in an MMO, it's so much worse because now you're actually having people directly impacted by these filters because of how it's impacting their ability to communicate in an MMO.
It's definitely one of those things that you can see why they had that in place because if you've ever seen Call of Duty lobbies,
Yeah,
it's understandable, but at the same time, it's a kind of weird, big oversight as well.
It's so frustrating because obviously a lot of work was put into this version of the game because it is a solid version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody didn't have anything else to play this on and they wanted to play 14, they'll have a decent time, but it's they're getting a worse experience. And for what? It's
and
maybe
Microsoft wanted to take, obviously having a nice experience for new players to the game is in Microsoft's best interest because they're going to get the sub cut and the transaction cut. But then when they make the experience in either of those fronts, either due to the profanity filter or the way you have to pay for your sub, people are just going to bounce off and they say, "Oh, I guess I'll just get this on PC."
Yeah, and I'll be honest, the 14 coin stuff, I really need to stress. Sony doesn't force you to sub to PlayStation Plus to play this game. Sony doesn't force you to pay for your sub through a PSN required payment system. What Microsoft has done here,
Sony doesn't get any cut.
They don't get any cut except when you buy the expansions. That's the only cut they get. But Microsoft, despite the fact that they've been begging for this game for years, have decided they basically are like, okay, it's not enough that we get the same exact deal as PlayStation. No, it's not enough that we get 14 on our platform and we get money from the expansions. No, we need to make sure that every single month that someone subs to this game on Xbox, we also get like a 10% cut or whatever the percentage is. And that's embarrassing as hell.
I'm kind of two mindsets. Part of me is like, I think Microsoft should have the option to take a cut if they made it conducive and convenient and not impact the player. But also, they're Microsoft and they make trillions of dollars a year, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
either way.
Just wish the player experience, like first off, above anything else, was better than it seems to be.
Yeah, this from a and this is gonna sound like a fucking asshole thing to say, but from an objective standpoint, you're getting the worst experience playing this game on Xbox. Even if the performance is fine, even if the actual like playability of the combat is fine, a massive part of MMOs is socialization. A massive part of MMOs is that communication between players, and there is an overly aggressive filter that impacts that usability of those systems on Xbox that you cannot turn off. And that's not even going into, again, like the sub stuff, like just from a base level, Xbox players are getting a rough deal here. And it sucks. They shouldn't be.
You know what game does have good communication? Last Epoch.
But yeah,
it's not quite a fair comparison because that's PC.
This language filter reminds me of when Genshin came out, and when people jump into other people's world, and then there's all that filter. I think one of the words that will get your account probably terminated. You mentioned the word Taiwan or something like that when it first came out.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. That's right. Yeah.
You can't say it.
Did they ever resolve that, or is that just still a thing?
I don't know, but I wouldn't want to try it with money in the game. I was like, I don't want to get my.
I was like, I'm protecting my account no matter what.
It's like, this shit sounds terrible. It's like I feel for them.
But yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on this because the one thing I am worried about, because very clearly the filter wasn't fully properly tested. Otherwise, you wouldn't have system text of one of the major hub cities in the game being filtered. Chow will probably know what I'm getting at here, but there are aspects in the game where you might be forced to type something into the say chat and say it to an NPC. My concern is that there's a decent amount of those. And obviously a lot of them I've already gone through, so I won't be able to access unless I do New Game Plus. Maybe I should do New Game Plus to test this. Is there any of those in the game that trip up the filter, which means once you get to it, you're not going to be able to progress?
Part of me is like, there's no way they let that through, but also like, well, maybe.
It's like you would assume that they wouldn't have let one of the main hub cities be filtered on every single system text, but they did, which begs the question.
Nope, I get that.
I was thinking, that place in Shadowbringers, like the ferry place, there's like this entire sentence you had to type out.
Oh my god, sucker, I need to test that.
It's like, that was what I was thinking about. Like, yeah, oof, I don't know how this will work.
Well, thank you, James, for
interesting science was conducted. We'll see. No,
the experiment continues.
Yeah.
And if people are listening,
we're gonna keep going. All right. No,
and if people are listening, this is just the last thing. If people are listening, I know that some people out there think they have a misguided assumption that I dislike Xbox as a platform. First off, I don't think you've listened to this podcast enough.
Are you the only person in this chat that has an Xbox?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't think people have listened to this podcast enough. I think people maybe aren't familiar with the fact that there's been some games I've specifically played on it. Like years ago, I remember when Undernauts came out, I bought the Xbox version and I reviewed it on there.
You
That
know,
wasn't something that we got a review code for. I went out of my way to buy that on Xbox.
I mean, I used to be just an Xbox owner too. It's just I just stopped because they didn't deliver during the
Yeah.
Xbox One generation.
Yeah.
So
The whole reason I even requested this Xbox code was because I love Final Fantasy XIV. I've put thousands of hours into it. And the last thing I want is for people that are playing this game that have been wanting this on Xbox for years to be screwed over. And how many people are going to be out there with experience playing 14 on other platforms checking out the Xbox release? Not many of them. It was only fair that I took a look at it so that for people like you, Xbox fanboys listening to this, that really were legitimately excited to play 14 on this platform, even if you're making excuses for the current state of things, you shouldn't be. You deserve better. That's the reason I've been taking a look. That's the reason why I'm going to continue to take a look until Dawn Trail comes out. Because at the end of the day, it's like somebody needs to do it. Somebody needs to document these issues.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's important work, and hopefully, Square Enix and Microsoft Xbox team sort of patches it out sooner rather than later.
Well, that's the last game that we had listed in our initial section here. Unless, Chow, you wanted to talk about your time with Rebirth.
well, I'm just trying to get for the platinum trophy. That's all right
The,
now.
the, the only thing you have left is what you said, the legendary solo challenges. You said.
Yeah, I've been like cheating with this one build that I've been using to kill every single fight, which is the ATP ward
Oh yeah.
spam.
Yeah.
You just put it on Yuffie and you just go to that circle and just keep spamming brutal form or whatever it's called, and then it's like, oh, Eris got a
Brumal
got a
form.
full ATB bar, fire and everything's dead. Just keep repeating that over and over. It's but the solo fight, it's man, these fights are brutal. It's I was just thinking, it's huh, they really want people to complete all these for the trophy? I was like, this is kind of ridiculous.
They did go ham with the combat simulator end game stuff, which I think is okay. It's just compared to the first game, it's a lot more time in the combat simulator.
How many hours do you have in it now, Chow?
130. So
How many more hours do you think you have in you to get that platinum?
I have not gone bored with this game whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
I play more. It's just I don't know. People seem to really dislike this game from the open world aspect of it. But
I think there's more people that have been positive on it than have been negative on it. To be fair,
it's true, but just the circles I am is they despise this game. It's Ubisoft, get the fuck out of here. It's oh my god, man. It's
You're just here trying to have a good time.
It's this is
have you done the hard modes yet or no?
No, I was thinking about just once I do all these legendary fights, I would just play hard mode with that cheating accessory that gives me a full limit break to kill all the bosses. That's what I was thinking of doing. But yeah, that's kind of my experience so far. I think with hard mode is I don't think it'll be much of a challenge just by spamming those things. Limit break kind of kills everything.
It wasn't as hard as Remake, mainly because the chocobo benches on the open world still heal your MP. So that's most of the hard mode limit still gone.
It's
you can just full heal whenever.
I just teleport to the boss and just kill it and call it day. You don't have to go through that struggle of trying to get through the level with your MP management. I would think. At least that's my guess.
I mean, some of the levels where you don't have access to the chocobo benches, you still have to be careful with your MP. But most of the levels, if you have access to the world map, you can go to a bench, heal your MP, and you're fine.
I think what most endgame players use, they would slot their materials with MP absorb, so they would cast a spell, and they would just get most of the MP back, and it would be not much of a MP management thing.
Yeah, the last two chapters of the game where they become boss gauntlets, that's where I really struggled on hard mode. So that's the one place where it felt like hard mode.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. So I'll see how it goes. Like for me, it's like I think
You
I
can
was
do it.
expecting like they want me to also like complete all the mini games like perfectly for the trophy as well. It's like I think there's only like 2 mini games I despise in this game. I do not like Gears and Gambit at all. I just want to get this over with.
I love Gears of Gambit. I love tinkering with that.
It's like I was like, okay, once I like do the hard mode version of that thing, I'm just gonna look at a guide and just copy it exactly. I'm not even gonna try it. That's how much I hated it. At least that's for me for that minigame.
Pre-release, I remember me and Alex were playing this game, and I was doing the hard modes as they unlocked. And Gears and Gambits took me forever. And Alex was like, I can't beat this shit on normal mode. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, man.
Well, that's usually a skill issue right there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's really funny because I saw all the complaints about that like pre-release, like from not just like the people playing it on our end, but also like other places where it's like, fuck this mini game, I hate it. And I was just like, I'm not even gonna mess with this. I'm just gonna use the pre-built setups and just like find one that looks like, that should work. Didn't have any issues. I've still not done hard mode. You could not pay me.
Well,
And
I have to
apparently
do. You have to do the
someone
hard
in
mode
our
for a trophy, so you have to do it.
someone in our Discord chat basically just said they just saved the preset on normal mode and used them because in hard mode you can't select the preset, but you can like still like if you know what it is, you can like recreate
It
or
worked.
whatever.
It worked.
I think Kumakats or whatever he goes by, they go by. I don't know their pronouns.
No, she
Basically
goes
said,
by
yeah,
it.
they just it's a she. Okay, she goes by, and then basically said they use the presets in hard mode and went okay.
Like for me, I you know why I hate it with that minigame is that like all those bots that you send out, they all use like an elemental bullet of some sort, like this I don't know, fire bullet or thunder bullet
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. Mhm.
I just hate how like like the final boss, it has like
Yep.
no elemental weakness. But you
Uh-huh.
kill all the mobs around it, they would not use the fucking elemental bullets, and that's like your main source of damage with these robots. So you had to go back and reprogram them to tell them to shoot those bullets despite it's not even their weakness. And as soon as I changed it to that, the boss was like immediately dead. I'm like, damn, why was that not on the default preset? I was so fucking mad.
Uh,
So I
what was
despise
the second mini game that you said?
Chocobo gliding. I just hate that the last one
I like that
requires
one.
like frame perfect to get the perfect score. In my opinion, because if you just like do it normally, you're just like not enough. You don't have enough height to get to like the second last ring. You always miss the second last ring or something. It's just like it was very frustrating.
That one's tricky for sure.
Yeah. So I was like, man, do I really need to be like frame perfect on all these mini games? It's like, oh my god.
Now some of them are like pushovers on the mini games. So.
Some of them are pushovers. Like the frog one's a pushover. I got that like first try. I think I went for like 3 minutes while dying. I was like, okay, fuck it, just get hit now.
The first frog minigame I struggled on a lot, and then when later in the game where you unlock a different version of it, I'm like,
The one that's like
not
circular,
again.
and then there's.
But then it was easier. So like, oh okay.
Yeah, the second one's much easier than the first one
Yeah.
because the first one you have like 2 things to worry about: the ring at the top, and it's like, oh, what? Like, yeah.
Rebirth's a good game.
But yeah, those are like the 2. Oh yeah, and the stupid bike challenge. So I was one of those players that started late, so I cannot get through the bike mini game because there's like a quest locked behind it, and the game would not recognize that you cleared that quest to this side quest character that you meet in that quest. So there was that.
Shinra middle manager. He's amazing.
Yes, I didn't want to spoil it. So it's like, oh,
It's whatever. It's not a big deal. But yeah, but we're coming up on the Square Enix fiscal year results soon, so they'll have to talk about the sales of that game. I know that's been on everyone's mind. There have been some sources out there that have been kind of giving guesses, educated guesses, but who knows?
wasn't the second Ultimania issue just came out about 7? I think there was like articles like interviewing like Nomura how you like want to call this game Final Fantasy VII Reunion, but somebody in like their marketing manager wasted that title on the Crisis Core, and they're like, now we can't use it anymore.
Yeah, I didn't read too much on like what
And
came
they're
out
like,
about the
oh
media
man,
stuff.
so people can be assured now Part 3 is not called FF7 Reunion now.
It can't be Reunion because whoever decided that for Crisis Core, they've
Wasted the title. Nomura wanted it. It's like,
They have to get
Okay.
creative now. I'm still banking on Revengeance.
I am begging on Return because of the soundtrack. I think in the soundtrack there's a theme in it. At the end it says Return, so
Yeah,
people are assuming it's Return.
it's probably likely it's Return. I want to believe. I want to be. I'm a dreamer.
You want
So
that Metal Gear Metal Gear Revengeance experience?
Yeah.
How you can slice the senator in two?
That'd be sick. So yeah. Well,
And what's
We'll
next?
see,
You
we'll
gonna
see.
say that your source that you made that up?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, not too much fun with this, I guess.
Yeah, but that's the one of the lingering ish. That's always gonna be one of the lingering topics coming into part 3. It's like, what's the subtitle?
With that, we'll go into our news slate, which is a little bit quieter. We have a ton of dates for April that we'll go into in a few moments here. I guess this month has been more focused on games releasing rather than game announcements. But we do have a few things. Well, actually, before that, I do have one more article shout out that I want to do. It was a little bit delayed because I think they were fighting an illness, but Scott White completed his PAX East write ups that he went out to Boston in was it early March, and he got to see the standalone spinoff for Lost Eidolons called Veil of the Witch. Lost Eidolons was a game that released a couple of years ago as a kind of a Fire Emblem like with like a more Western high fantasy aesthetic. They're doing this kind of spin-off called Veil of the Witch, which is slated to release at some point this year. And he was able to go hands-on and preview that game over at from his time at PAX East in Boston. So we do have that preview up on the site as well. In terms of news for this week, no, nothing really major, but we did get probably the biggest single data drop this week is more information and a ton of screenshots and a new trailer for the upcoming Shin Megami Tensei V Vengeance. So we talked a little bit about how last week we saw the new form for the Nahobino and a few other different like characters and how they interface with the story. This week we got a big newsletter drop and I don't know all the important details of this, but I will say that the most interesting one is the Jack Frost Nahobino demon thing.
What's it called?
It is called Nahobiho.
There you go.
There, yeah.
Yeah, Nahobino. It's kind of the spelling of it is like you think it's
Biho.
Biho. It's like Beeho or something like that.
And it is excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other details are we interested in? What was shared in this trailer?
So it's just like a lot of like kind of just more details on what you saw in the latest trailer, but obviously like you said that in the Nahobino form, and kind of more details on some of the returning characters and then some of the new ones like Mastema coming back for this game. They kind of provided more like minor details on like some of the new stuff that you'll encounter, like the Magatsu rails that you grind on to they act sort of like a shortcuts around the map to get to other places of the map faster. But it's a lot of like very very minor details on things that have already been in the base game, like abscesses, relics, treasure chests,
They're
all
going
that
to
sort
the
of stuff.
characters again.
Yeah,
And
but
like the voice actors. Yeah.
one of the more significant things is like these new demon hots zones. That's basically kind of like a socializing zone. So you kind of access them from like the ley line founts to teleport you to isolated parts of the map where like some of your demons will show up and you can talk to them, give them gifts. You can take photos of them if you so desire, and through socializing with them, you can power them up slightly, so raise up some of their stats. You can kind of get more stat bonuses for your main character as well because Aogami can talk to the main character and whatever conversations they'll have. You'll power up your main character to that. But that's kind of the main thing. The interesting one of the more interesting mechanics that they're adding in through this Vengeance re-release that isn't in this press packet is they should Japanese press outlets got to go to the preview events for the game, and one of the things they mentioned is that there's like this new overhead view that you can access throughout exploration throughout these dot zones. So if you're unsure if there's like any like hidden treasure chests or things that are like not in your view, you can actually like put up like an overhead view mode of like the current area that you're in, and get a better feel of like your surroundings. Like, oh, I want to go here next because I see something from this overhead view mode that I couldn't see like normally. So they're just kind of making the exploration parts of that game a lot more like just nice quality of life things, instead of like having to manually, walk on over to like other like weird isolated parts of the map just to see if like there's anything else there. You can just like put up this overhead view map, just a nice little touch.
Oh yeah, it seems like
to
a
that.
nice little quality of life.
Yeah. So other than that, not so much. Like the Japanese account has been doing the daily demon videos again. So like in the original game, pre-release like for several months out, they started like releasing like the small minute-long videos of demons that are appearing in the game. They're restarting that up, and they started off with the Nahobino, and then the second one was like for one of the new demons showing up. So it's gonna be just a nice little thing. Like if people just want their daily SMT5 video, they're starting that up again on the Japanese Atlas.
So are you guys looking forward to replaying this entire game, or you're just kind of
Uh,
iffy about it?
I'm for me, I am 100% in because this Vengeance release has like basically a new campaign to it. So there's like a lot of new story events uh gonna go on. So it to me it reminds me a lot of like SMT4 Apocalypse, where the setup of it is sort of the same, but the way that the events play out is seems to be totally different. And for Apocalypse's case, it was a different main character altogether, but still in the same storyline as SMT4, but with like way different events happening. And this seems to be following a similar trend where instead you have still the same main character, but the way that things play out and the way that characters are involved is like totally different in this new campaign. So I'm very excited because I like the foundations and system that SMT5 has. I just wish they kind of did more with them, and I think this expanded re-release is gonna give me what I want. I don't know how it is for you, Adam. I know you're looking forward to this re-release too, but I wonder if like what your angle on this is from what they've shown off.
I don't really have an opinion. I will play it again.
Okay.
Damn, everyone's
I mean,
so fully sold.
Adam just replayed Persona 5
Yeah,
Royal
I just
on
played
PC.
Persona 5 for no
Gravy.
reason, so
Yeah, but I know that
So,
when this was
extra content is gravy.
I know when this was announced, like you do review assignments, and you're like, I definitely want to be the one to review this again, and like kind of get that more like fully pictured angle from the same individual on this.
We also got the announcement for a new update coming out for Darkest Dungeon 2 later this year. Update is for a new Kingdoms game mode. So Darkest Dungeon 2 released last year, and it also got a DLC called the Binding Blade. I forget when the DLC actually came out. So this is kind of they're calling this an extra game mode, not like DLC 2. We got a trailer for it, and it's coming out later this year. And that's all I know about it. I do know that did you play the first game and this game, Josh, or just the first game?
I played the first game. I played a tiny bit of the second game, but I feel like I'm in that crowd of like a lot of existing Darkest Dungeon players where I think I just don't like the totally different direction that they made with Darkest Dungeon 2, so I kind of bounced off of it pretty fast because I really like the core foundations and systems of the first game, where it had like kind of like that town building and dungeon crawling mechanic. And Darkest Dungeon 2 kind of you can tell that the development team was like, hey, we should do the Slay the Spire type of campaign deal, and it just doesn't translate well for this kind of game. So for me, I just
It's one
like
of those games where more
yeah,
people are playing the original release than the sequel.
yeah. So I can't say I'm really that excited, even though I like Darkest Dungeon 1 a lot. Darkest Dungeon 2 is like, I just didn't drive with it.
But those who are playing Darkest Dungeon 2 will have this new mode sometime
Mhm.
this year.
Yeah, but I hope that development team continues to do I don't know if I wanted Darkest Dungeon 3, but I think it's a really talented development team, and I'm excited to see what they have next. I kind of hope that it's like something totally different.
Does Darkest Dungeon 1 still get like updates, or is it like on just like maintenance?
I'm not sure exactly.
And I know sometimes you say maintenance and there's like a negative connotation to it. That's not what I mean. Just like making sure they have bug fixes but no content. Because
I
basically, if a studio can like
Mhm.
support Darkest Dungeon 1 and 2 at the same time, and they cater slightly differently, or Path of Exile 1 and 2 coming out, that's something like it can be rather than treating it like original game sequel, just like two offerings in the same realm. Like keep supporting Darkest Dungeon 2 and 1 if the studio is able to do
I
that.
don't think they're doing any more
Better.
content drops for Darkest Dungeon 1, but like the latest like patch notes I saw was like on October 2022 for like better integrate and support features for Steam Deck for that game. But
Okay,
that's
so
about
at least
it.
they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, everything else is like I think the strength of that game moving forward has been like mods from users.
And then in other little smaller trailers, we did get a fun little animation trailer for the upcoming Cat Quest 3. This one is just like your kind of typical 1 minute little animated introduction to the premise of the game. Cat
Yeah.
Quest, I actually have played 1 and 2, and
Mhm.
they're fun little casual co-op games. At least 2 was co-op, and I think 2 included 1 into it. I think I played like the combo pack.
Does this
I
new
forget.
game look drastically different from the previous ones or no?
Uh, Let me look at the gameplay trailer real quick. It looks similar. It's
Yeah.
you kind of have like an isometric view on like a world map that you can like explore around, and you see little note. It actually reminds me a little bit of like Saga Scarlet Gray / Emerald Beyond in terms of like you find little nodes on a map and you go into them.
Uh-huh.
So yes, Cat Quest is like Saga. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and Cat Quest 2, I think like me and my girlfriend played it for like 50 hours. It's not a short
Wow.
game.
Yeah, holy
No,
crap. That's a lot.
maybe I'm overestimating, but it's still not short. It was at least a couple dozen hours. But yeah.
I think the biggest thing out of this was this is the first news article that we have here that came out of that Triple I initiative live stream for all those. So we'll see other small games uh, down this news pipeline here in this episode that came out of that Triple I initiative. But that it was largely non RPGs, but there were some bits here and there. Was
And then in the final dev diary for the upcoming Sandland, we got one that was focusing on the Forest Land region. And I feel like we talked about the Forest Land. That must have not had a trailer before. That was just the newsletter, and now we've got the accompanying like video footage.
we did get a trailer for the Forest Land. It's just like they usually just like they give like the trailer, then sometimes they'll like follow it up with a dev diary, like explaining more. Like I think they did like considering like the base management or something. So
And like
uh,
the city that you build up, I forget the name of the city, but it's quite like the environments in this game are still like impressive to me. Like this game is definitely like I think could be the sleeper hit of April. I'm really excited to play this one.
I hope it's cool. I'm rooting for this game because I do like the original Sandland source material. I just a few weeks back, maybe it was even like last week, I mentioned that like I just reread the original manga of Sandland, and it still really holds up. It's a really easy read too. It's like maybe half an hour to an hour read, depending on how fast you read. It's just like a nice, very simple story that has like pretty powerful themes, and just one of the earlier works from Toriyama. And I think it's the one of the fighting things about the series. It's like it really showcases Toriyama's um aptitude of like drawing vehicles, and like even like but it's one of those things that like looking back that Toriyama mentioned and like the author's note for it, that's like he even expressed that like maybe he worked a little bit too hard on it because it was a very stressful time for him, like kind of finishing Sandland, because the amount of vehicles, not to say like not to say that the amount of vehicles like in terms of like number, but like the amount of like sh- drawings that he had to do for like for each panel of the vehicle was like stressful on him, like different angles, like during chase sequences, and like having to redraw that same vehicle, but like in a different like perspective angle because of the action shot was like stressful on him during that time frame in 3. So but it's still a really fascinating series that I really am interested in both like watching the new anime adaptation and this game because they have, that new forest land, brand new material that
Yeah,
continues that
yeah, the fact
story.
that it's kind of like a basically official sequel
Yeah,
to the original manga. So
yeah. So very like I hope this game is good, man. I really hope it is.
yeah, and no other major updates this week, and no, as far as I could see, no big sales milestones or anything like that. So we'll go into the last little chunk here, which is a lot of dates and a lot of things coming out in like the next week or so, in addition to all the things that are already listed. So we'll just go into this. Here's something that James actually covered and looks really interesting and kind of made a bit of a splash when we shared it on our social page.
Oh
We
yeah, I
have
was
an up
shocked.
Yeah, we have an upcoming Kickstarter for a new indie RPG called Runa. So Runa is being developed by a studio called Fennec Studio. Fennec as in like Fennec Fox. And then this is a game that has been inspired by JRPG classics, and you spotted a couple very clear ones when you covered this game. The announcement of the upcoming Kickstarter, James.
Yeah. So you can actually go to the devs Twitter account. They've been tweeting about it since like late 2021. So they've been working on this for a while. When they say RPG classics, well, obviously just looking at the like user interface for like the battles, it's like one obvious one. It's Persona. It has social links. They said that much. Uh, Another one is Xenoblade, and there was even a tweet where they were like, "Yeah, I did this effect for like the day night cycle that I really liked Satori Marsh in like or Satoral Marsh in like a Xenoblade, and I kind of wanted to do something akin to that." And it's like, okay, that's neat. And then they also said that some of the puzzle solving with like the elemental puzzles in the game that they're working on was inspired by Golden Sun. So yeah,
A lot of the character designs are also like reminiscent of like Xenoblade kind of stylings.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're
that's
really good
really
character
ambitious.
designs.
Yeah, it
It's
looks
like
really.
yeah.
This is no, it's not live yet. I was wondering like what their goal is with this Kickstarter. I don't think they disclosed that yet.
Yeah, so this is probably a long ways off, but it's been in development for a while. Game development takes a long time. Yeah, the Kickstarter is going to go live on April 16th, and they have not stated their goal yet, like you said. And in terms of, they have not said like a planned release window or anything quite yet, but a lot of that detail might come out with the Kickstarter launching. So we'll stay in touch on that.
Yeah, I
But
definitely
yes,
want to check out like what that Kickstarter page looks like when it goes live. I think it's like good on this team for they made a strong case and strong impression of their initial batch of screenshots and trailer for this game. It looks great.
and then like James said, some of the stuff I saw that was shared on the Twitter page is like, here's how the game looked in 2021. Here's how it looks before the Kickstarter, and they're putting in the work. Like how much they've improved over the last 3 years
Yeah.
from their initial concepts to now is like, damn, like these guys are seemingly know what they're doing. I haven't dipped
Yeah.
any deeper into like history of whether these guys have worked on other projects or anything like that. But if you want to go into a Kickstarter where they have something like a true vertical slice to show you, it seems like this has been cooking for a while. It's not just concept art on a screen where they're saying, yeah, we have some ideas. Like, no, they really seem to kind of have their ducks in a row.
At
So I
least
imagine that
go
this
yeah.
Kickstarter will go really well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, at least going by the reception, not just on our tweet, but also like the other like outlets that have tweeted about it. It seems like people are interested and people are talking about it, which is good. And it's a 3-person development team,
Yeah,
so
very impressive.
you gotta assume that yeah, one, very impressive. Two, it's a 3-person development team, so you got to assume that they don't need that much of like a Kickstarter goal to continue developing it if it's 3 people. So
I do find it funny. Part of the press release, like one of the bullet points is no silent protagonist. That cracks me up because I don't really mind silent protagonists, but I know some people in the RPG
They're
space
like,
feel
this is
strongly.
not Xenoblade Cross. This is Xenoblade 2. But yeah, the name of the game again is Runa. So if you're interested, go ahead and look up Runa. in Kickstarter, and it'll be live in a couple days. At the time of recording, sorry, at the time of you listening to this, it might already be live. Also, on April 18th, we get the second DLC for Sword Art Online Last Recollection called Ritual of Bonds, Volume 2. There is a list of names of characters that are playable in Volume 2, and I recognize some of these, like Yucheo and Lifa, Yuki.
I think it's like not even just like playable. It's like candidates to like to be like Kirito's like true lover, I think, and of course like one of them is same sex with Yu-Gi-Oh. So there's like an amusing screenshot that we shared on social media where like Yu-Gi-Oh's like just cuddling up in bed with Kirito from his perspective, you know. And just like one of those things like just accepted in that fandom that like yes, Yu-Gi-Oh is like one of like Kirito's like candidates to be a lover.
It's funny because I have a couple of friends that are into SAO, or I've gotten into SAO recently, and all of them have said it's really funny how you can tell like exactly the moment that the SAO creator became a feminist, and then he was like, okay, here's Kirito's true love interest. Here's this dude in the anime adaptation when tragedy occurs. Dude is fucking mortified, just literally straight up like it's crazy.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things. It's like even then, like Kirito has more like chemistry than Yu-Gi-Oh than like most of like the other female candidates that they pair him up with. It's amusing.
Yeah.
And I guess the premiere pass that they had when the game launched, this is the second of the 2 DLCs as part of that. So if you bought into that, then you get this for free on the or for free, prepaid for on April 18th.
Apparently, so a previous update of this game added like a Hololive VTuber, the Minato Aqua, and like I was getting like, I guess I was getting educated by like some of my friends who really follow Hololive, and they're like, no, this Minato Aqua VTuber is like a major SAO fangirl, so it's kind of like her dream come true to even be featured in the game. I'm like, oh, that's good on them, living out your best life.
Also on April 18th, we're going to learn about the next game from Warhorse Studio, the studio that created Kingdom Come Deliverance, which Adam has talked about a couple times on the podcast. According to multiple sources, including Gamatsu and Insider Gaming, this game will indeed be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So that's basically all but official at this point. But we'll see next week if the rug's been pulling all the wool is pulled over our eyes or anything. But it seems like Warhorse will reveal the sequel to their game.
The return of Henry, potentially. Henry 2.
Actually, the very first game that I covered at my very first E3, rest in peace, was Kingdom Come Deliverance. And it was playing the first-person combat. When you had, like, imagine playing, Adam, a vertical slice of the first-person combat in Kingdom Come Deliverance without any like tutorial or training. Just like, here, sit down at a computer and defeat this knight. Or like, I don't know how to do this.
Impossible task.
So that was the one and only time I played Kingdom Come Deliverance. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. It seemed like a game that had amassed a bit of a cult following. So if they want to follow up in that IP,
it's a good game. Like I do like Kingdom Come Deliverance a lot. So I'm excited to see like if this is like the sequel to it, what it could potentially bring. Because I think that first game achieved a lot with seemingly very little.
Yep. Remnant 2 will get another one of its DLCs packs called The Forgotten Kingdom on April 23rd.
Yeah, so this is as James and I correctly like kind of guessed is like how these 3 DLCs are going to be structured. So this one now is adding a new storyline and events and enemies to the Yaesha world. The previous one, The Awakened King, added a new storyline to one of the other 3 worlds present in the game. I forgot exactly what it was called off the top of my head. But this one is Yaesha focused, so it's like kind of like the jungle forest world. It'll introduce a new archetype, the Invoker, They haven't said too much about the Invoker yet. They're gonna follow that up with more info, I think, sometime this week. We just know it's gonna be focusing on like utilizing the power of nature spirits for its tool set and toolkit. But yeah, I mean, it's cool that like this game continues to get support. Obviously, that is gonna be the second of 3 planned DLCs coming April 23rd, and yeah, it's the first one, the Awakened King, that I did play with friends, and that was pretty cool. They added a lot to that game with that DLC.
Yeah. And I do like what they're doing with the DLCs because it makes it that you really can just buy any one of them and still have a good time, because it normally, like the way that they handled it with the reviews and like impressions was that they gave you a specific option to force a playthrough of the new content. But the way that Remnant 2 usually works is that whenever you enter a world, it randomly pulls from any types of content that there might be in there. And with the DLCs adding like additional like base specs for these worlds, for lack of a better term, it just makes it so that if you want to keep playing Remnant 2, like there's even more like permutations for what might happen in a specific playthrough.
Yeah, and it's also it's like even like an initial playthrough of like that fixed seed of that DLC, because of the way that this game is structured, there's different outcomes per like run through of it. So even though you go through that initial one that one time, like you won't see everything it has to offer because of how different permutations can potentially be, how it could potentially go. So if in order to see like every possibility and everything, all the items that the new DLC has to offer, you have to actually run that, multiple other times, like seamlessly through like going through that zone. So it's the way that they've been doling this out has been really smart, and like still fits within that framework of the game, and you still have to like play it multiple times to see everything that it has, which is cool. It adds to that strong replayability of that game.
This next one's actually a combination of a date announcement plus a release, a sales update. So the last spell, which was a tactical roguelike that released about a year ago, last March, has sold 400,000 copies. And then the studio at Ishtar Games has announced that a new DLC called Dwarves of Runeberg will be coming on April 24th. Also later in April, just a day after, we talked about Fallout 4 getting its long-awaited next generation update and PC update on April 25th. I guess I don't have these quite in order, because going back to April 24th, we have the release date of Genshin Impact 4.6, Two Worlds of Flame, The Crimson Knight Fades. And Chow, you'll have to help me out with this. This introduces the playable character Arlecchino.
Arlecchino, yeah. Yeah, she's actually like one of the most hyped characters for Genshin since like 3.0. She's like hinted as like one of the people that work for the Fatui, which is like this antagonist organization, but some people just call it Genshin Russia.
So I do have a question for you, and maybe this is me begging the question a bit, but Arlecchino is not in the game yet, right? She'll come with the update on April 24th.
Yes. Like, well, technically, this character is in the story as like kind of like an antagonist, but yet she's also an ally. She helps you in certain scenarios if you get what she wanted. Kind of thing. It's like a.
I do, when I googled her, so I could see like who the character was. I'd see YouTube videos that talk about like skill, gameplay, full guide, best weapons, artifacts. Like, is that based all on leaks, or is that based on
leaks? People, well, unless you go from yesterday. Yesterday they have all the announcements on how this character works and that, right? So, like most content creators, they probably read the leaks to get like a general idea of what to prepare for, and once the official thing comes out, then they probably just kind of like retool the leaks and then make the guide, when the official announcements are done, right? It's like the leaks and the official stuff are usually not too far off, although they probably don't want people to talk about leaks, so, in general, right?
I do like one of the comments.
Anyone listening, you didn't hear it from us. Don't tell no one.
Yeah, that's like the Genshin scenario, but yeah, she's like a very hyped character. Personally, I completely skipped out on her. I went for a dude for a Genshin game instead.
What happened, Chow? What are you doing?
Okay, I had to get I can't say the dragon guy's name, but I had to get the dragon guy. The whole Farina story arc sold me on the dragon guy, so I had to roll on him. Sorry, it wasn't the numbers this time; it was the story. It's
Oh,
like imagine if Final Fantasy 14 was a gacha game, and they have Emmett Selk as a dude that you can roll on. I would go bankrupt, guys. It'll be like that.
just what everyone wants to think of. Imagine if FF14 was a gacha game.
Emmett Selk was rollable. There's no hope.
Oh, fuck, man.
But yeah, that's basically what happened. So I have no gems saved for her, despite how cool she looks. I also think she looks kind of weird without her weapon. And gacha banners in Genshin, weapon banners are the biggest scam of all time. So you did not go rolling on weapon banners unless you really want to flex on how strong you are. So, and she does not look cool without her weapon. So don't do it, folks. Don't go for it.
So you're saying if you want to get this character, you got to get the weapon as well.
Yes, because her signature weapon's like a scythe, and her like running animation just goes so well with the scythe, and it just doesn't make any sense if you do not have the scythe with her. So aesthetically, she does not look right without her weapon. So,
So don't even bother if you're not even going to get her weapon. You're saying.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Got it. Noted.
That covers us for April, but we do have one more release date in May. And this one is a little bit of a blast from the past, a game that we haven't heard about in a while. This is Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder. So this is a game that we covered back around 2020 when it was announced. And we got some gameplay during the summer gaming events then. And then as far as I can tell, Adam, there's been no big news. It kind of's gone dark ever since for like the last 3 or 4 years. And then the studio, this is kind of a Castlevania-like, very much in the vein of Symphony of the Night, at least in terms of how it looks. Reappeared at the III Initiative, and we got the announcement that the PC version of the game will release on May 21st. Now, the game has previously been announced for other consoles, and we don't have any details on those at this time, but they're still listed on the website. But interesting to have this game kind of go dark and then immediately show up and say, hey, it's releasing in a little over a month. So I know we've had a couple people that were very eager and anticipating this back when it was first announced. Adam, are you still eager to play this a few years down the road?
Yeah, probably.
Cool.
Yeah, I got to try it on a Steam Next Fest demo. I don't know if it was like 2021 or 2022. I know I was able to get my hands on this game at some point through a demo, and they do have a demo live as well. I don't know if it's that same demo. Probably is, but they have it live now on Steam as of we're recording this episode. And it's a really cool, like solid, like Metroidvania style side scroller game. And it seems like you can allocate stat points into your protagonist, and there's a skill tree, and all that sort of stuff. It's still looking great. So hopefully that the full game just kind of lives up to the potential and is awesome.
It does look like it was available as part of one of the early Next Fest demos in 2023. So yeah, I don't want to say nothing's happened since 2020, but it feels like it's been a lot of demo.
But yeah, on the news front, it's been silent for sure.
Mm.
And you know what? That's fine. Like it's
Yeah,
let the developers
that
work.
at all.
Yeah. So hopefully all this development time has paid off, because it's kind of interesting. Like this game was initially set to release in 2020, so I wonder what how much additional work they had to put into, like, hey, with this currently not at a state that we can release it at this time. Let's really give it our all and spend the next few years making sure that it's like amazing.
Weather the pandemic storm.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, it's also releasing at a good time. May's a good time for it.
I was gonna say, like that Castlevania expired Metrovania, that Alucard run animation, you can see that influence like in every single game.
For sure. Absolutely. Iconic, really.
It's just too good of an animation.
It is, man. I'll never get over it. It looks so good still.
And that covers us for all the news that I had listed here on this podcast. So actually really kind of a fun one. I kind of teed us up starting out saying that this podcast might be a little bit strange, and maybe it was, but I don't know, it was also good at the same time. Those things can coexist.
Strange but good, yes.
There you go. But yeah, we had some really cool talks about just a few different topical relations to Fallout. We talked about a few games that are released earlier in the year, like Rebirth and Last Epoch, and a few things that are coming up in April and what we're looking forward to for the next couple of weeks. We got Sandland coming down the pike at Uden, Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy 16 DLC. So a lot to talk about in the upcoming weeks. So just definitely stay tuned for all of that. We have all the reviews that we talked about, like the Fallout TV series review up on the site, rpgsite.net. You can find RPG Site on all the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for RPG Site, and you should be able to find us. Join our Discord by hitting the link at the top of our homepage, at rpgsite.net, or going to discord.gg/rpgsite. If you listen to this podcast, go ahead, give us a rating, give us a comment on whatever you listen to us to. We'd love to see those. And we'll be back next week, starting to talk about some of the major releases coming out in April. And maybe I'll play Broken Roads by then. We'll see. You'll see if it's truly as broken as it's seeming it might be. Any other final comments before we adjourn?
Just the programming notes on the potentially next week's episode. So straight up, like the episode might be delayed a day for deliberate reason. Can't say why yet, but just know that next week's episode might be coming out on Sunday instead of Saturday. And we'll tell you why then.
Yeah, we're working around embargoes, obviously, because we record and we try to get it up within the same day. Sometimes it takes us a day to get it up, but just making sure we don't publish anything before it's supposed to be. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, well, we will keep you in the know on our social media. You should follow us on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until you hear from us next time, stay safe and take care, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Later, folks.
Bye.